Have you ever seen someone insult you just to get a reaction, and instead you gave them nothing but silence? That moment of calm can be more powerful than any comeback. When they try to provoke you, don't fight back. Don't defend. Just pause. Because silence, when used with control, speaks louder than anger ever could. The next time someone disrespects you, remember this. Your silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's how the wise win without raising their voice. Contact is made. Now let the silence do the work. Rudeness feeds on instant reactions. It expects you to flinch, to defend, to explain yourself. That's the trap. They want you flustered, emotional, and off balance. But when you pause instead of reacting, you shatter their script completely. The silence becomes a mirror. It reflects their behavior back at them. Raw, uncomfortable, undeniable. Everyone in the room can feel it, including them. You don't need to say a single word. Your calm composure says everything for you. It says, "Your words have no power over me." It says, "You are not worth disturbing my peace." Without a sound, you expose their lack of control while displaying your own mastery. Here's how to use it. The moment someone throws a rude comment your way, don't respond. Breathe. Count to 3 slowly in your mind. Keep your gaze steady on them. Not with anger, not with disgust, but with calm observation. Let them sit in the silence they've created. In that stillness, most people crumble. They either start backtracking, fumbling for an explanation, or they dig their hole deeper by getting more aggressive. Either way, you win. If they backtrack, their guilt is exposed. If they escalate, their immaturity is revealed. I once knew someone who faced this exact test. In a team meeting, a colleague cut them off mid-sentence, dismissing their idea with a condescending smirk. But instead of snapping back or retreating, they simply paused, eyes calm, shoulders relaxed, completely silent for 4 full seconds. And in those 4 seconds, the entire room saw the truth. The rude colleague looked smaller. The silent one looked powerful. The silence from the previous moment still lingered in the air. Just steady, calm eye contact. That was all it took. The entire room went silent, almost frozen in the weight of that stillness. The interrupter began to shift uncomfortably in his chair, glancing around as if searching for an escape. Then, almost instinctively, he began to speak again, fumbling, backtracking. "Well, I just meant that maybe we should," he stammered, trying to soften his own words. No one had asked him to explain himself. Yet there he was, unraveling under the pressure of his own rudeness. The person who had been interrupted didn't say a word. Not a single one. They just maintained that calm, composed expression, steady, present, unshaken. And when the interrupter finally finished tripping over his excuses, they simply smiled slightly and said, "Thank you," before continuing their presentation as if nothing had happened. In that moment, something powerful shifted. The room's respect for them deepened, not because they fought back or humiliated the interrupter, but because they held their composure while the rude one lost his. Marcus Aurelius once wrote about this kind of power, the quiet strength that lives inside silence. He understood that sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. When you meet disrespect with calm stillness, you are not being passive. You are demonstrating mastery. You are showing that their words have no access to your peace. Marcus would say, "Composure in the face of disrespect speaks louder than any comeback." The person who can remain calm while others squirm in discomfort has conquered themselves. And that kind of self-mastery leaves people speechless, not because you destroyed them with words, but because your calm exposed their chaos. 3 to 5 seconds of calm eye contact. No words, just presence. That's enough to stop rudeness in its tracks. Because rudeness cannot survive without reaction. Silence, when used wisely, creates space, and that space exposes truth. But now let's move to the next level. A method that doesn't just expose rudeness, but completely disarms it. Method 2. Agree with obvious exaggeration. It might sound counterintuitive, even absurd, but it works brilliantly. When someone insults you, instead of defending or explaining, you agree with them, but in such an exaggerated, over-the-top way that it turns their attack into a joke. Rude comments feed on your resistance. They want you to argue, justify, prove them wrong. That's where they gain power. But when you agree in an obviously exaggerated way, the attack collapses. There's nothing left for them to push against. For example, they say, "You're always late." Instead of apologizing or defending yourself, you respond calmly. "You're absolutely right. I've never been on time for anything in my entire life," delivered with a straight face. No sarcasm, just calm, matter-of-fact exaggeration. Or they say, "You think you know everything." You reply, "Yes, I do know literally everything about everything." It's honestly exhausting being this knowledgeable. The exaggeration is so absurd that it exposes the ridiculousness of their original insult. Without you needing to argue at all. Someone I know once faced this exact situation. At every family gathering, a certain relative would throw the same passive-aggressive jab. "You're wasting your potential. You could have been so much more." For years, they defended themselves, explaining their choices, their reasoning, their path. Every conversation ended in frustration. Nothing ever changed. Then one day, they decided to try something different. At the next dinner, the same comment came again. "You really settled for less than you could have achieved." This time, they smiled calmly and said, "You're absolutely right. I've completely wasted my entire life and achieved nothing of any value whatsoever," said with a perfectly straight face. No emotion, no sarcasm. The family member froze, completely disarmed. The previous story ended with silence and victory. There was no argument left to fight. The exaggeration had been so over the top, so calmly delivered, that it stripped the original criticism of all its weight. It sounded absurd now, almost comical. The person who made the rude comment began to stammer, trying to pull their words back. "Well, I didn't mean it exactly like that," they muttered, suddenly unsure of themselves. But by then, the power was gone. The tension in the room dissolved. What used to be a spark for arguments now landed flat, like a punch thrown into thin air. After that gathering, those passive-aggressive remarks started appearing less and less, not because of confrontation or drama, but because the tactic simply stopped working. No defense meant no fight. Just calm, exaggerated agreement that made the rudeness look foolish all by itself. Epictetus once taught that if you refuse to defend yourself against an opinion, it loses its ability to harm you. Think about it. If someone calls you foolish and you calmly reply, "Yes, I'm incredibly foolish," where does that insult go? It dies right there. An attack needs resistance to survive. When you agree without defensiveness, you show unshakable confidence, proof that their words can't touch how you see yourself. And that's what leaves them speechless. Not because you won the argument, but because you refused to have one in the first place. The secret, though, is all in the delivery. Calm, straight-faced, no sarcasm, no bitterness. Just a composed, obvious exaggeration that drains the insult of its power by refusing to resist it. If you've ever used calm, exaggeration to diffuse rudeness, and watched the attack crumble because you stayed grounded, drop a comment below saying, "I agree completely." Your example might inspire someone else who's still wasting energy arguing with disrespect. Now let's move to the third method, one that doesn't just disarm, it exposes. Method 3. Ask them to clarify their intention. This technique works like magic against passive aggression, those sly, disguised insults wrapped in jokes or fake concern. When someone makes a comment that sounds off, instead of reacting or defending, you simply ask them, calmly and curiously, to explain what they meant. That's when things get interesting. Watch how they either stumble to backtrack or awkwardly reveal their true intentions. Most of the time, they retreat immediately saying, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way," because deep down, they never expected to be called out so calmly. The genius of this method lies in its simplicity. It forces hidden rudeness into the open. Passive-aggressive people thrive on plausible deniability. They insult you, but mask it with phrases like, "Just kidding," "just being honest," or "just worried about you." It's their shield, their escape route. But when you ask for clarification in a neutral, composed tone, that escape route disappears. You're not accusing them. You're not emotional. You're simply asking for understanding. And that innocent question traps them completely. Here's how it works. They say something that feels rude but disguised. You respond with calm curiosity. "I just want to make sure I understand. What exactly did you mean by that?" Or simply, "Can you explain what you meant?" Your tone matters. It must be neutral, not sarcastic, not defensive. Just genuinely seeking clarity. And in that moment, they're stuck. If they explain honestly, they must admit their rudeness. If they deny it, "Oh, I didn't mean anything," they reveal that their comment was hollow from the start. Either way, the mask comes off. Someone I know once faced this exact situation. A family member at every single gathering would throw the same line. "You're wasting your potential. You could have been so much more." For years, they tried to justify themselves, explaining their career, defending their choices, reasoning with the person. Every time it ended in exhaustion and frustration. Nothing ever changed. But then, they decided to try something different. At the next family dinner, the same passive-aggressive remark came. "You really settled for less than you could have achieved." The familiar comment echoed through the air once again. "You really settled for less than you could have achieved." But this time, there was no sigh, no justification, no attempt to defend. Instead, they looked straight at the person, completely calm, and said, "You're absolutely right. I've wasted my entire life and accomplished nothing of any value whatsoever," said with a straight face. Steady, emotionless, and utterly sincere. The room went still. The family member froze, eyes blinking in surprise. There was no argument left to have. The exaggeration was so extreme, it stripped the criticism of all its seriousness. The attack deflated instantly, like a balloon losing air. They tried to recover, mumbling, "Well, I didn't mean it exactly like that." But it didn't matter anymore. The power was gone. The comment that once sparked endless tension now landed flat and lifeless. After that day, those remarks almost vanished completely. Not because of confrontation or anger, but because the tactic stopped working. No defense means no battle, just calm, exaggerated agreement that turns the rudeness back on itself and exposes its absurdity. Seneca often used questions to dismantle weak arguments. He knew that asking for clarity can be far more powerful than making accusations. When you force vague rudeness to define itself, it collapses under its own emptiness. The person must either double down and look openly rude, or admit their comment meant nothing at all. Either way, they lose credibility. Your calm, neutral question does all the work for you. You don't have to raise your voice or prove anything. Simply ask, "What did you mean by that?" Or, "Can you explain?" No sarcasm, no edge, just genuine curiosity. That one simple question shines a light on their intent and removes the shadows they hide behind. This method works beautifully against subtle, hidden attacks. But what happens when rudeness happens in public? When someone tries to embarrass you in front of others? That's when you need something faster, a method that shuts them down instantly without losing your composure. And that brings us to method 4, the public response that works immediately. Here's how it goes. When someone is rude, dismissive, or tries to undermine you in front of others, thank them sincerely for their input and immediately continue what you were doing. No pause. No dwelling. Just acknowledgement and forward motion. Why does this work? Because rude people crave a reaction. They want to see you flustered, defensive, or thrown off course. But when you respond with calm gratitude, thank you for that perspective, and move on as if nothing happened, you give them nothing to feed on. You're not ignoring them. That might seem weak. You're not arguing. That would look reactive. You're simply acknowledging what they said and proving, through action, that it doesn't matter. The message is subtle but powerful. You are not important enough to interrupt my focus. Here's how to use it. They interrupt your presentation with a dismissive comment. They make a sarcastic remark during your speech. They try to derail your point in front of a crowd. Your response is simple, immediate, and steady. Thank you for that input, or thank you for sharing that. Say it in a neutral, even slightly warm tone, not cold, not sarcastic. Then continue exactly where you left off. If you were speaking, keep speaking. If you were presenting, keep presenting. The key is zero hesitation. The thank you and the continuation must flow together like one seamless movement. I once knew someone who used this perfectly. During a high-stakes presentation to senior leadership, one person interrupted mid-sentence with a smug tone. This approach will never work in our market. The presenter paused for only a second, looked directly at them and said, "Thank you for that input." Then, without missing a beat, they continued the presentation. No defense, no explanation, just composure. The interrupter sat back, confused, unsure what had just happened, while everyone else in the room could see clearly who had the real control. The moment the presenter said, "Thank you for that input," and continued speaking, something shifted in the room. No one paid attention to the dismissive remark anymore. Instead, every eye turned toward the presenter, who remained composed, calm, and confident. That level of poise earned them even more respect. After the presentation, several people approached to say how professionally the situation was handled. Ironically, the very comment that was meant to undermine them only made them look stronger, because they treated that rudeness as too insignificant to stop for. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not let others control your peace or your path." When someone tries to derail you with rudeness and you simply thank them and move forward, you demonstrate total self-control. You show them that, "I heard you, but your words have no power to change my direction." Marcus would remind us, your peace is worth more than their attempt to disturb it. Acknowledge, but do not engage. Their rudeness is their problem. Your path forward is yours. When you thank them and keep moving, you send a clear message to everyone watching. No one can pull you off course just because they crave conflict. Your power lies in your unshakable forward momentum, while they're left standing still, powerless. They throw their rudeness at you, but it bounces off without leaving a single mark. Thank you for that perspective. Then you move on. No hesitation. No dwelling. This method works instantly, especially in public, because it strips all power from rudeness by treating it as insignificant. When you do this, everyone in the room can see it. You're the one in control, not the rude person. If these 4 methods have shown you how to handle rudeness with composure instead of confrontation, make sure to subscribe for more Stoic wisdom on commanding respect through calm. And click like so others can learn that dignity is more powerful than any comeback. But sometimes rudeness goes too far. It crosses from annoying into truly disrespectful. When that happens, silence or politeness alone isn't enough. You must set boundaries. And that brings us to method 5. State your boundary calmly, without emotion or explanation. When rudeness crosses the line, you must know when to stop and draw yours. No anger, no long justification, just a clear, steady statement of fact. Rude people love testing limits. They want to see how much they can get away with. If you tolerate everything, they learn there are no consequences. But if you explode in anger, they can turn the story around and make you look like the problem. The solution lies in the middle, a boundary expressed calmly, without emotion, like a simple truth. You're not asking to be treated better. You're informing them of the conditions required to continue engaging. That subtle difference changes everything. For example, when someone's tone becomes genuinely disrespectful, you can say, "I don't engage when I'm spoken to that way," or "That tone doesn't work with me," or "I'm happy to continue this conversation when the tone changes." State it as a fact, not as a negotiation. Then stop talking. Let the silence do the rest. At that moment, they have two choices: adjust their behavior, and the conversation continues, or don't, and the conversation ends. Either way, your dignity remains intact. I once knew someone who dealt with a coworker who often escalated to insults whenever discussions got tense. This had gone on for months. They tried ignoring it, hoping it would stop. They even tried polite reminders about keeping things professional. Nothing changed until one heated day when that coworker started throwing insults again. We saw how a calm, firm boundary could stop disrespect in its tracks. This time, instead of pushing through or getting angry, the person did something completely different. They stopped mid-sentence, looked at the coworker calmly and said, "I'm happy to continue this discussion when the tone changes." Then, silence. The coworker blinked, surprised. He tried to keep arguing. "Did you even hear what I said? We need to finish this." But the response was the same, steady and composed. "When the tone changes, I'll be here." Nothing more. No lecture about respect. No emotional explanation. Just the boundary and silence. And in that quiet, something shifted. The coworker suddenly realized that the conversation would not continue unless he adjusted his tone. After a pause, he exhaled, took a breath, and reset himself. When he spoke again, his voice was measured, calm. They finished the discussion professionally. And after that day, the insulting language never returned, not because of confrontation, not because of management intervention, but because a clear line had been drawn, quietly, confidently, and consistently enforced. Epictetus taught that you teach others how to treat you by what you tolerate. Accept disrespect without consequence, and you teach them that it's acceptable. Set a calm boundary and uphold it, and you teach them exactly where your limits are. Epictetus would say, "A boundary stated without anger is pure strength. It shows you know your worth, and you protect it." You're not trying to control their behavior. You're simply stating reality. This is how I engage with people. Meet that standard, or we do not engage. That kind of clarity leaves no space for argument, guilt, or manipulation. State it once. Enforce it calmly. Then silence. I don't engage when spoken to that way. No explanation needed. The boundary speaks for itself. Boundaries work beautifully when someone crosses the line. But sometimes the problem isn't a single rude comment, it's the person themselves. And that brings us to method 6, one of the most misunderstood yet transformative approaches. Method 6, respond to the need behind the rudeness, not the rudeness itself. Here's something most people miss. Sometimes, rudeness isn't really about you. It's about stress, insecurity, or a loss of control the other person is experiencing when you respond to what's actually happening beneath the surface, instead of reacting to the rude words, the entire dynamic changes. This approach requires awareness, not defense. Observation, not ego. Let's say someone snaps at you over something small. You could snap back, defend yourself, or match their tone, or you could pause and recognize that their anger probably isn't about you. They're overwhelmed, anxious, or frustrated about something else entirely. When you address the real issue, not the surface disrespect, you bypass the conflict completely, and often you diffuse the true source of the problem. It's simple in principle, but it requires presence. You must see beyond their words. If someone is being rude but clearly looks stressed or agitated, instead of reacting, you respond to the emotion underneath. You seem really stressed. Is everything okay? Or, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. Is there something I can help with? You're not excusing the behavior. You're just choosing to address the source, not the symptom. And more often than not, the result is instant. The tension melts away because you've given them what they actually needed, not a fight, but acknowledgement. A friend of mine once experienced this firsthand. They were working on a big project with a brutal deadline when a team member suddenly snapped at them over a tiny mistake. The tone was harsh, completely out of proportion to the issue. The natural reaction would have been to defend themselves or respond sharply, but instead, they paused, stayed calm, and said, "You seem really overwhelmed with this deadline. Is there something about the project that's stressing you out that we should talk about?" There was a long pause. The team member took a breath and admitted quietly, "Yeah, I'm worried we're not going to hit the deadline, and I don't know how to compress the schedule any further." In that moment, the rudeness dissolved, replaced by honesty. The tense exchange shifted completely once calm understanding entered the room. The conversation moved instantly from conflict to collaboration. Instead of arguing, they began discussing solutions, walking through the project's timeline together step by step. By the end of that conversation, the once angry teammate quietly apologized for their tone without being asked. The rudeness dissolved, not because of confrontation, but because the real issue was finally acknowledged. The stress, the pressure, the unspoken frustration, once it was brought into the light, there was no more reason for hostility. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this kind of understanding. He taught that people act out of their own pain, fears, and circumstances. When someone behaves rudely, it's often a reflection of the turmoil within them, not an attack on you. Marcus would remind us responding to the pain rather than the rudeness is wisdom. That doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. It means you learn to recognize when rudeness is simply a symptom, a cry from someone who's overwhelmed or hurting. And when you address the cause, the symptom often fades on its own. This method demands more awareness than the others, because it requires you to see beneath the surface, to pause before reacting, to ask, what's really happening here? More often than not, the rudeness itself isn't the real problem. It's merely the signal of the problem. This approach works beautifully when rudeness comes from stress, exhaustion, or loss of control. But what about those who are not stressed, not overwhelmed, just consistently rude? What if you've tried silence, composure, and empathy, and nothing changes? That's where the final principle comes in. Method 7. Limit engagement and let your absence speak. Sometimes none of the previous methods will work because the person simply isn't interested in mutual respect. Their rudeness isn't situational, it's habitual. It's who they've chosen to be. And when that becomes clear, the most powerful response is not confrontation. It's distance. You limit their access to your time, your energy, your attention, and let your absence deliver the message. This isn't about revenge or playing emotional games. It's about recognizing a simple truth. Some people have shown, through repeated behavior, that they do not value respectful communication. Once you've tried setting boundaries, responding calmly, and even offering understanding, yet the rudeness persists, it's no longer about fixing the behavior. It's about redefining the relationship. No drama, no grand announcement, just a quiet, natural withdrawal of access. Your time, your attention, your presence, they're valuable. And when someone loses access to those, the message is crystal clear, even without words. This practice is subtle but deliberate. You gradually reduce engagement to what's absolutely necessary. Your responses become brief, polite, but emotionally distant. The amount of time you spend with them shrinks to the bare minimum required. You're not being rude. You're not ignoring them completely. You're simply refusing to invest in someone who has proven unworthy of that investment. And though the change is quiet, it's impossible not to notice. I once knew someone who lived this lesson. They had a friend who was consistently dismissive, rude comments disguised as jokes, constant interruptions, and a condescending tone that never seemed to end. Despite multiple calm conversations, nothing changed, so they finally stopped trying to fix it and started creating distance. They stopped initiating contact, stopped oversharing, stopped chasing mutual effort. When that friend reached out, they still replied. Friendly but brief. The shift was gentle, but undeniable. We saw how distance began to speak louder than words. Invitations were politely declined. I'm sorry, I've got something else scheduled. No drama, no confrontation. Just a quiet, steady reduction in availability and emotional investment. Weeks turned into months. Then one day, the friend finally noticed. They asked directly, "It feels like you've been distant. Is something wrong?" The response was calm, honest, and unshaken. I've noticed that our interactions haven't been respectful, so I've decided to spend my time with people who communicate differently. No anger, no accusation. Just a simple statement of fact. At that moment, the friend had a choice. Some people, when faced with that truth, reflect and change because they realize the relationship matters. Others don't, and the distance remains. Either outcome is peace, because you are no longer carrying the weight of constant disrespect. Seneca once wrote about the importance of choosing your company wisely, because the people you spend time with quietly shape your character and your life. He understood that not everyone deserves access to your energy, your calm, or your presence. Seneca would remind us, protecting yourself from consistently disrespectful people isn't rudeness. It's self-respect. You tried engaging with dignity. You responded with composure. You gave understanding where it was due. And when that respect wasn't returned, you withdrew. That withdrawal isn't weakness. It's not avoidance. It's the natural consequence of their choice to remain disrespectful. Your energy is finite and deeply valuable. Spend it where it's respected. Reduce engagement quietly. Let the silence and distance do the teaching for you. If they ask, answer simply and calmly. I've chosen to spend time with people who communicate with respect. No debate, no defense, just truth. These 7 methods aren't about winning arguments or putting rude people in their place. They're about maintaining your dignity and peace, no matter how others choose to behave. That is the essence of Stoic power. You can't control their rudeness, but you have absolute control over whether it affects you. Marcus Aurelius faced open disrespect. Epictetus endured cruelty. Seneca dealt with betrayal. And yet, all 3 held themselves with a composure so steady that their detractors were left powerless, not through anger, not through silence alone, but through calm presence, a quiet strength that exposed the chaos of others while protecting their own peace. Start with the method that fits your situation. The calm pause. The clarifying question. The boundary stated without emotion. Each of these is a practice of self-respect, a reminder that you are in control of your reactions, not at the mercy of someone else's behavior. When you stop giving rude people the reaction they crave, you take away their only weapon, your attention. If these 7 Stoic methods gave you practical ways to handle rudeness with calm strength and quiet dignity, subscribe for more wisdom on navigating difficult people while protecting your peace. And if this video helped you see that composure is more powerful than confrontation, like it so others can learn to command respect through calm. Rude people will always exist, but they only have power over you if you hand it to them. These 7 methods ensure you never do. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay stoic, stay composed, stay dignified. Your peace is not negotiable.